At the height of mass demonstrations that were led by Raila Amolo Odinga and the entire Azimio fraternity, William Ruto wrote a letter to the international community and to all the diplomats in Kenya, requesting them to place sanctions on Raila and the other Azimio principals for leading a course to topple what he called legitimately elected government. And Raila responded by telling the diplomats that demonstrations are entrenched into the constitution, and that as long as you do that, you picket without any weapons, that freedom and right must be protected, because nations or countries like the US and the UK have always projected themselves as fighters of democracy and champions of democracy. And this forced the US to send the Delaware Senator Chris Coons, and he tried to broker a deal between Raila Odinga and William Samoei Ruto, and there was a ceasefire. And that is what bred the talks that are going on in Bomas, and Raila had to call off the demonstrations. Now, during that moment, the US ambassador to Kenya made certain statements that did not go down well with most Kenyans, especially the Azimio supporters.
Let me unpack a couple of these areas. Democracy. I arrived in Kenya days before the August 22 general elections. What I witnessed was nothing short of remarkable. Kenya held what many analysts and commentators say was the freest, fairest, and most credible election in Kenyan history. The elections were observed by international and local election organizations, and the results were upheld by the Kenyan Supreme Court, and power was transferred orderly and peacefully at the time.
Those statements infuriated Raila Odinga, who has always maintained that his victory was taken away by a consortium of bodies, including the superpowers like the US and the UK. And Raila warned Meg Whiteman.
You want to tell a rogue ambassador, leave Kenyans alone. If Mandamano can lead to a dialogue between Ichungwa and Kalonzo, everything is good with Mandamano. Tell the rogue ambassador, Kenya is not United States. Kenya is not a colony of United States. Keep your mouth shut when you hear. Otherwise, we will call for your recall back to your country.
And today, in the media, it is being recorded that Meg Whitman actually regrets those statements. And it's widely reported that US envoy Meg Whitman admits stating Kenyan elections were transparent was a blunder. That statement seems to have really excited most of the Azimio supporters. But I disagree. And I will tell you reasons why this is just a mere fallacy meant to hoodwink, some of the Azimio supporters and to bring what I call a feel-good environment. Because the media reports that she was pressed hard to explain how she would do things differently. And this is what Meg Whitman said, that she explained that if she were to do that again, she would say it differently. Pressed to explain how she would do things differently, she stated, I could just have said nothing at all. I could have gone right into why Kenya is good for investment. Now, most people read it and read there. But look at the next statement, because remember, it is said that she explained that if she were to do that again, she would say it differently. Now look at what Meg is saying, how she would say it differently. That additionally, she stated that during the conference, she would have used excellent instead of free and fair. That is where I have a problem, ladies and gentlemen. When Meg Whitman tells us that she would have used the term excellent instead of free and fair, what is the difference? She said that the elections, the 2022 elections, were free and fair. Can we replace the term free and fair with the term excellent? If you execute those statements and tell people that the 2022 elections were excellent, what is the meaning of excellent? Without any flaw, impeccable, hawezi pata makosa. In other words, she still maintains that the 2022 elections were free and fair. You all know that during the counting and verification in Bomas, Meg Whitman was the chief guest in Bomas. In fact, I dare say that the chairman of the IEBC was not Wafula Chebukati, it was Meg Whitman. And the consortium of nations like UK and US and a number of bodies like the IEBC, which was just being manipulated to execute that which those countries wanted, and together with the Supreme Court, were the factors that aided William Ruto's victory. And this statement is coming at a time when Chris Kun had come here and they had agreed that the talks are going on, and these talks are being supported, and I believe being supported with a lot of resources from the UK and the US. Now Raila all of a sudden has become a good man to them because Raila has allowed William Ruto to continue with his policies that have really become very harsh to Kenyans. So Raila is good because Raila has accepted that Kalonzo would lead talks on behalf of Azimio. But I want to submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that Meg Whitman is not genuine with these statements and with her statements already. And I've seen people say that maybe the US is turning away from William Samoei Ruto. I beg to disagree. Now, you know, when William Ruto ascended to power and he was aided by the nations, the US and UK, there were a number of things that they agreed William Ruto would do. One of them was immediately he was sworn in, he lifted the ban on GMO that had been there for 10 years that Uhuru was in power. You've seen the high taxes, something that if you follow politics carefully, you realize that these are dictates of the IMF and the World Bank. And all these are institutions that are being supported from the West to ensure that William Ruto does not get more loans from the East, maybe from China, Korea, and Russia. And you've seen how William Ruto accepted LGBTQ, you know, through the Supreme Court. And let me, you know, maybe the last one tell you that, you know, people say that William Ruto had been talking about how we can abandon the US dollar. He was never serious. This I can assure you. He was acting as a Trojan horse. And I was looking at the meaning of a Trojan horse. Something or somebody that is meant to perpetuate and advocate for the rights of somebody or the agenda of someone without being noticed. So you see, when William Ruto started talking at the African Union front that we need to get away from the dollar, a moment of reality check came when he was presented with the reality to join the BRICS. He refused because you know that the BRICS is a new economic establishment that is trying to rival the dollar and the pound. And countries like South Africa, Brazil, India, Russia are already in. William Ruto refused to get, and that is why Malema came into the country and he was like, William Ruto talks too much, but his actions are going contrary to what he says. And then when Russia organized for a Russia-African summit, he refused to go, neither did he send even any representative. So tell me why you think US and UK would abandon William Ruto. This is their slave, their puppet. He does everything that they want, and so they are still together, and they want to ensure that William Ruto succeeds. So I don't believe that US or UK would abandon William. That is why you saw King Charles came here choosing Kenya as the first African, first Commonwealth country as a king to visit. And you've seen the kind of dignitaries and visitors that William Ruto, has received from the Western countries. Even Bill Gates has been here, I think, twice now. And the delegations that he receives. And this is just to tell you that US and UK can never abandon William Ruto. This, I feel very sad when people get to be hoodwinked that US is running. I don't think so. The only thing that US and maybe UK could do is to strengthen azimio, because after robbing Raila of his victory, they would always want Raila to checkmate William Ruto. Now I want to tell you 3 things that Meg Whiteman should do for me to believe that she is genuine. Because when she says she would have said excellent, she believes that William Ruto won. Now the following are the aspects of what Meg Whiteman should do so that we believe that she regrets and apologizes for those statements. Number 1, if you truly believe that the elections were never won and there is a controversy behind the elections, the only true reflection that can show us who won is opening the server. Why can't Meg Whiteman just air her voice and force, because Kenya will always do what US wants. Why don't they just compel the Kenyan government, the Smartmatic and anyone to open the IEBC, to open the IEBC servers so that we know who won? Because by just stating things, like I said, they want us to have a feel-good kind of attitude, a feel-good kind of environment that US is regretting, Meg is regretting. There's nothing that Meg Whiteman regrets. We are being hoodwinked. Let her compel Kenya to open the server so that we know that she's serious about this. Number 2, there are victims of police brutality that were either killed or maimed during the demonstrations because the government unleashed the cruel hand of the police, and they really suffered in their hands. If Meg Whiteman is serious, let her air her voice so that those victims are compensated. Those who lost their lives, the families should be compensated heavily. Of course, I know that there is no amount of resource or money that can equate lives, but at least they should be compensated. Let her state that very publicly, and we see the result of her statements. Without that, these are mere talks. Number 3, the perpetrators of such violence that were meted, atrocities that were meted on innocent Kenyans during demonstrations, should be brought to book. And Meg Whiteman can lead, can take a front line in advocating for that, so that the police, like we saw the rogue police who are even using the ambulance to, try to camouflage in the ambulances, and they were hitting people anyhowly. Raila's vehicle was hit, 9 to 10 times, and there was attempted murder. Why don't they talk about, why can't Meg Whiteman talk about this so that we can, bring them to book? Because very many people talked about this, including the UN branch that is dealing with human rights, including the lawyers of the Commonwealth. So if she is serious that she regrets those statements and she believes that the elections were never fair, let those people be brought to book. And maybe the last one, let Meg Whiteman offer an apology. Not just saying that, I realized that there was a lot of controversy about my statement. Let her say that I believe the elections were never won, and I apologize to Raila Odinga, I apologize to the Azimio fraternity, and I apologize to, all the Azimio supporters. And that is my submission, that all these are meant to to help us, have a feel-good kind of, attitude. There is nothing like Meg making a U-turn. I think we have become wiser than this. We cannot allow such statements, again to excite us. Any statement without action is nothing. As always, ladies and gentlemen, those are just my thoughts. I don't know what you think. Please share with me on the comment section.